Do you specialize in anything? I hear you do a lot of wrinkle removal.
I wonder if I can talk about that. My name is Ian Johnston. I'm a visual effects artist, and I've worked on a number of music videos, movies, and TV shows. Some of the more notable ones are I worked on the third and fourth Hunger Games films, the Netflix movie The Kissing Booth, the second season of Westworld, a handful of music videos by Rihanna, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, Demi Lovato, Pink.
Holy shit. Just to name a few.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
CL's Lifted.
Oh yeah, we did CL's Lifted. That was a fun video. We did the video for Despacito and a bunch of others that I'm not remembering.
Right, thank you so much for just pulling those out of the top of your head. Can you please explain what visual effects are to people who might get cinematography, physical, and special effects mixed up?
Yeah, so visual effects are basically anything that's done in the computer. A lot of times people describe it as CG or CGI, which means computer-generated imagery. That's a part of what we do. CGI works in a three-dimensional space, and a lot of visual effects are done two-dimensional, just on the actual image. You're not building a 3D model and then rendering it out, although that is a big part of the visual effects work. Practical effects and special effects are work that happens in front of the camera, actually on set. If you think about the old Indiana Jones films or the Lord of the Rings films, they had a lot of practical effects, and visual effects is a different sort of type of work, although both are very, very important to filmmaking.
Do you specialize in anything? I hear you do a lot of wrinkle removal.
I wonder if I can talk about that. My specialty is a compositor. What that means is I take multiple source images, whether it's the take that got shot on set, still images of sky plates and background plates and whatnot, and sort of combine them or composite them all together to form the final image. A lot of the work I've done on projects has been cleanup work. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay. That's totally fine. And what's your favorite thing to do with visual effects? I heard a little bit about fire, maybe?
Fire is always fun. I got into visual effects because it allows you to tell stories that are a little bit more fantastic than traditional sort of dramatic stuff. However, a lot of the visual effects that I end up doing are what we call invisible effects. Stuff that if we do our jobs right, you never know are visual effects.
That's amazing. Okay, so we'll just jump right into the first video that you'll be reacting to. So some information about the artist. This is actually a solo artist. This music video was produced in 2016 under YG Entertainment. And then I did some research and I heard that this was edited and directed by Christian Yu, who works for a company called Dream Perfect Regime, or DPR for short.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So that first opening waveform thing would have been, I guess you could call it a simulation, but it would have been a generated image that they then transitioned to the rest of the actual footage that they shot. Sometimes it can be a thing that is very art directable and very controllable, and sometimes that sort of look would have been preset or a manipulation of certain values that generates that based on what inputs you give it, but I don't know specifically for that one. Glitch effect, they're cutting out the artist from the video, generating a pattern over him that is that sort of grid. I'm not sure if it's a 2D or 3D effect, but my guess would have been 2D, and then they're distorting it based on the music and using an effect to sort of glitch his image underneath that as well. Although that could have also been partially done practically, where they're sort of projecting an image with a video projector onto him and having that play while they're recording is another way they could have done part of that. When it flickers in the background, they're isolating that part of it using a process called rotoscoping. They'll cut that out and then add another video on top of it and mix it with a couple other sources and then do their glitch process to it to sort of make it flicker. I'm not quite sure what they're doing for that water effect, but the simplest way to do it would be to shoot it and then reverse it so that instead of dropping water, it comes up into his hand. Lots of times tricks like that are used to simplify things rather than doing like a full-on water simulation. My guess is for this particular shot it would have been a reversal just because it would have been a lot easier to achieve. But it doesn't have to be that way. Oftentimes, if you see a TV screen or a monitor, it'll be an alteration, one of those invisible effects that I was talking about. It's hard to capture an image on a monitor exactly the way it looks in real life, and so oftentimes it'll be a monitor replacement. With something like this, it could go either way. It kind of looks like they might be just shooting the monitor, but there's no real way of knowing. More of the rotoing out the areas that they want to glitch and then adding video on top and glitch affecting them. We did a very similar thing for the CL lifted video. On some of the shots we were adding glitch effects as transitions and to sort of emphasize things. A lot of this would have been done practically. The sort of glow on his eyes here would have been done after the fact. They would have probably made a shape for the eyes and then done some glow treatments, kind of like how the lightsabers in Star Wars are done. This would have been a background element. They probably shot the whole thing on white and then through a process called keying, which is what you do for a green screen, would have allowed them to cut him out from the background and place the graphic element in the back. That sort of glitch coming off of it, I don't know if they would have written software specifically for this video, but they would have developed a process that they can feed in an image and it'll distort it a similar way depending on what the image is and then get a sort of repeatable result each time. This, I'm thinking they would have shot on set and used a projector for the background because I think that would give an easier result with the reflection on the ceiling and floor and how you can see the change in the image's perspective on the wall here. And then this is rotoing out the tattoo and replacing it with another image that has the glitch effect. More of this generated pattern that they're using throughout the video. There are some plugins that could do this, but it might be something that they're building specifically for this video. Hard to say.
Yeah, they'd have the footage in their program and then they'd put the stuff on top?
Yeah, essentially depending on the luminance values, so where the areas are brightest or darkest, some other parameters like where edges get found in the image, and even like color values could determine these sort of heights of these waveforms.
Whoa.
This whole shot feels like it's tilted away from camera. There's ways to control that and change sort of what direction it goes. Yeah, I definitely think that this is a projector setup, just because with how much different things they're showing on it, it'd be a lot easier to set that up on set and record it rather than having to sort of create a new look every time digitally.
Right, so is he actually standing there while it's going on?
Yeah,
okay.
And they would set up the projector so that it doesn't really fall on him. It would be like pointed behind him and off to the side. It's a commonly used technique. I've seen a few videos that do something like this. This would have been 2 different takes. One of them where they're projecting, and then one of them where it looks like he's on a white background and they're isolating him to composite them together, one on top of the other. Glitch effect for the logo at the end.
Right, so to quickly review that video, were there any specific transitions that you thought were tropey, or was there a specific effect that you liked the best?
I think that the sort of glitch halo, I guess, where it kind of waves off and you have the sort of wireframe coming off of the image was a cool effect. Some of the effects felt like they were there to make an interesting image rather than like a story purpose, which is fine, but not so much my taste. But yeah, it was a neat video.
Okay, so this is yet another solo artist. Her name is Hyuna, and this music video came out in 2017, and it's produced by Cube Entertainment. I got a bunch of names, like gaffer and assistant director and focus puller, but I'm not sure what those jobs are.
A lot of those are part of the production team. There'll be people working on set. The gaffer is generally in charge of the electrical team, how the lights get set up, and he's sort of the second in command to the director of photography.
Okay. Jimmy Jib?
That's probably a jib operator.
What's a jib?
So a jib is a piece of camera equipment. You can think of it like a crane. It has a counterweight at one end and the camera at the other. And
yeah.
And you can get sort of sweeping shots over a fairly big area.
Okay. And then someone was credited for art. I'm guessing, is that the visual effects?
That, I'm guessing, is the art direction, and so like what you're seeing of the set, kind of, how the set looks and props in the background and whatnot.
Okay, so the director is Hee-won Shin, and I'm just going to say the art director is Ji-won Young, and then, yeah, there's a bunch of other names, but I'll probably butcher the pronunciation. Alright, go ahead.
So I'm guessing that this would have been in front of a green screen, and then a couple of different space images that are then sort of spread out as the virtual camera that they're using pulls further back. They're kind of blended together and combined. And then the stars in the foreground, right in here, would have been an element that was created for this shot. And so the square behind her would have been either blue screen or green screen. Green screen is more common with digital shooting equipment, but depending on what's in the frame, both can be used. And since his pants are a little bit blue and there's blue elements in the far back, my guess is it would have been green screen. Digital cameras have more information dedicated to the color green usually, and so you can get a cleaner result with it, but functionally they end up being the same. This would have been a transition film burn effect to emulate sort of the 35mm or 16mm film burning through the actual celluloid. So this would have been another glitch effect, or sometimes it's called pixel sorting, and depending on the value of the pixel, it stretches, and then they're also overlaying another shot to transition to the next one. Most of this would have been done practically. The couple of frames where another shot is being overlaid might have been a digital thing, and the thing that makes me believe that it is that it isn't reflected in the bottom, it's continuing.
Oh, wow.
And I think that this would have been combining 2 takes and then in the computer sort of overlaying them. It looks pretty solid. It feels like it's projected back there. This could have been done a couple of different ways. My guess is they're shooting her on a blank background, whether it's green or white or blue, and then having a second video shot that is spinning and having the sort of pixel sorting applied to it, and then combining them. The background video could have either been shot with a wide-angle lens to create that sort of distortion, or there could be some manipulation to it after the fact that is sort of wrapping it around, and it could be a combination of both. The earth, I believe, would have been added in digitally, and they would have tracked the scene and built an earth element that is then spinning. Some of the nebulas in the background, I think, would be an overlay that they're doing in the edit. Could also be a projection, but my gut feeling is that it's not. Doesn't look like it's sort of fitting the contours of the background. It feels like it's being combined later on. Yeah, these would have been... It looks like they're taking the same take of the middle artist and cutting her out through rotoscoping and then pushing it on that footage and spreading her out throughout the image. This would have been keying it on green or blue screen and replacing the background. Sometimes you can tell with the way the edges are or the way the hair is. Less fine detail than if it was shot there in front, depending on how much time and budget was available for that particular shot. They would have tracked her irises and overlaid a second video and then cut it out so it was the circle shape and limited to her iris. These neon sign elements, I'm guessing, would have either been a graphical sort of logo that they created or another plate that got shot and then combined, and then it looks like they're putting the whole thing through sort of a VHS sort of degradation kind of filter. And so this would have been shot on green screen again with a generated or created background. They might be doing something where it's taking a bunch of different images and compositing them to be a single sort of environment, or they might be doing a full like landscape computer generated thing. Cool.
Yeah, there you go. So a lot of those times there's a lot of different, it's looked like filters. How many do you think were actual lights versus after?
A lot of the multicolored setups I think would have been various lights that they had on set. Anytime you see sort of the image like tearing apart and rebuilding itself, that would have been a filter. A lot of the space stuff would have been an effect that they're doing. There were a lot of transitions that could have either been done in the editing process, or it could have been broken out as specific visual effect shots, where if it was done during the editing process, there's sort of a library of transitions that you can go through and use, and then if it was done as an effect shot, you get a little bit more control and focus on what you want it to do. And so anytime you have the image sort of breaking apart and rebuilding to another image, that would have been a filter or an effect.
Okay, cool.
Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa pop. I think I like it. 긴장은 down, down. 부끄러워 말고. 어지러워.